Warm welcome to all of you who are here watching us today. Um, we have a very brilliant scientist with us, Dr. Pritha Dey. She is an entomologist and is currently a post-doctoral fellow at the Center of Ecological Sciences, Indian Institute of Science-Bengaluru. Pritha has her Ph.D. on the taxonomy and diversity of geometrid moths in Western Himalayan protected areas, and she's largely distributed in the diversity, distribution, and evolutionary ecology of moths. Apart from science, she shares her experiences through popular articles and public outreach, aiming to improve the state of moth research in India. Pritha says when she's not looking for moths, she looks for graphic novels in secondhand bookshops. She likes to travel and is an occasional painter. Pritha will be speaking to us on the moths in our backyard, and we are delighted to have you here, Pritha. And we would like to get insights about what moths are and get to know more about what these wonderful creatures are. Over to you, Pritha.
Thank you, Mary, for inviting me for this session. So, as you know, the National Moth Week has started from yesterday. So, this would be a great introduction to the week this year. And since I'm the country coordinator
Yes.
from this year on, so I I'm very much looking forward to this week and getting more moth observations from across the country. So, like without delaying further, I would start with my talk. Okay, so the topic of my talk today is moths in our backyard. So, moths haven't been a popular group of insects. From literature, in poetry, in paintings, we have seen that they are these stupid insects who fly straight into the flame, and it's kind of suicidal flight for them. And also, they are depicted as these dark creatures in many famous thriller and horror movies. But I'm here to assure you that they are more than that, definitely much, much more than that. They are one of the most successful inhabitants of this planet. They, in a terrestrial ecosystem, they are the major herbivorous community. With about 160,000 species found globally, we have approximately 10,000 species in India. Many of them are yet to be discovered and described, but it is a rough estimate that we have about 10,000 species in our country. Ecologically, moths are significant as pollinators, bioindicators, they are also scavengers, and most importantly, they are part of the food chain as food for different insectivorous birds, bats, and other animals. So we know they're popular cousins, the butterflies, but moths outnumber butterflies and skippers by an order of magnitude, and we know very little about the geographic distribution of moths, host-plant relationships, and global abundance. Recently, only last year, during when the entire world was going through the coronavirus crisis, we had this study come out where it was shown that moths are the secret pollinators in an ecosystem, and which is very crucial. And compared to the more well-known pollinators like the bees, their transport networks are much, much larger and complex. So both butterflies and moths belong to this insect order, Lepidoptera. So it comes from the ancient Greek, in which lepis means scale and pteron wings. So their wings are made of these tiny microscopic scales, which gives them their brilliant color and patterns. So we often confuse between moths and butterflies. They are similar in many ways, different in some ways. Butterflies are essentially day-flying moths, but most butterflies are active during the day, and most moths are active during the night. Butterflies have this club-shaped antennae, which with a ball-like structure at the end of their antennae, and moths have variable antennae. It can be comb-like, it can be straight, so it is variable. And most importantly, in their developing stages, moths spin around a cocoon when they are pupating, which is spun by the larvae. But in butterfly, the chrysalis, the covering of the pupa, is formed of a body part, is a modified body part. So, just to give a background of how it all started for me, I started about in 2013 studying moths as a naive researcher. I did not have any idea what moths are, but I got selected in a project in the Wildlife Institute of India to document the moth fauna in remote areas in the Western Himalaya. So I went there and did light trapping in remote places, stayed with the villagers, and studied moths. And what I understood that the moths are not very well known among them. They understand what birds are, they understand the mammals around them, they understand butterflies, but moths are something that they are not very aware of. So when I would explain to them what my work is about, they would say, "Acha, raat ki titli." So that kind of stuck with me that they are associating moths with well known butterflies, but they don't know what moths are actually. And that motivated me to continue working with moths and understand them better. So I've already worked in two protected areas in Uttarakhand, Nanda Devi Biosphere Reserve and Kedarnath Wildlife Sanctuary. So and for my PhD and afterwards I did some independent project. And then for my postdoc I moved down south into the Western Ghats in Karnataka where I'm working currently. And the sheer diversity that I've encountered through my work is bewildering and has always motivated me to work towards moths for my research. But it's not always important to go out into the forest and look for moths. They are right here around us in our backyard. I'm not talking about well prepared lawns, but actual backyards where you allow trees and shrubs to grow naturally. They are pretty much critical habitats for moths and other tiny insects. So, moths are basically attracted towards light. So, it is something of an evolutionary short circuit because we exactly don't know how this happens, how and why this happens. I mean, many people are working to understand this process better. This behavior is called transverse orientation. They maintain a constant angle to a distant point source of light. For them, it is the celestial light or the moon. So if the moths are actually flying towards the moon on a normal circumstance, but when we disrupt their pathway with artificial lights, they get distracted and get attracted to the artificial lights that we put on. So, for studying moths, light trapping has thus been a very well adapted method. So, we can use different types of lights to observe moths around us. First of all, we need a big reflecting surface so that the light reflects off that surface and the moths get attracted and can sit on that surface. It can be a white wall, a white curtain, or something, a light colored wall, or something like that. We can use different kinds of light: mercury vapor, actinic light, LED, tungsten, or halogen. So, any light which has an UV component usually works the best because, like most nocturnal insects, UV light is attractive to them. So this is how I used to set up my light trap when I began working on moths. I had to go to very remote places where there was no electricity. So I used these solar powered lamps and halogen lamps. And later on, I switched to this fantastic light, which is called the Lepidopteran, which was specifically made to study moths. It has four different kinds of light, which covers the entire spectrum of lights, light wavelengths to which moths are attracted. So, so these are all the options that we can try to attract moths and study them. And it doesn't matter if you don't have expensive equipment, you can still look for moths, you can still observe them and study them. So you can see here, this is a very basic trap that we can set up right in our backyard. We just need a powerful source of light and some like some materials on which the moths can come and perch. So they need a perching surface, so that's very important, and the light is important. There are other moths which are attracted to the smell of fruits. So they are called the fruit piercing moths, which belong to the family of Erebidae. So if you have like ripe fruits in your home, you can just place them outside and see if these moths are getting attracted. Or you can make a bait which is used like with ripened fruits, jaggery, and if you have some beer, you can just mix them all up and put it on a tree and see what moths are getting attracted. So these are all fun ways that you can try do and try at your home to observe moths. So there are some common families that I'm going to mention here as like what that you can observe around your house in your backyard. There are many families. There are about 180 families of moths in India. It's not possible to understand them all, but I'll just take you through some of them. So they have all these families have this typical resting posture, like the geometry moths. They sit flat on the walls or any surface, with both their hind wings and the forewings exposed. It's called the platyform resting position. And some moths, like the noctuidy moths, they sit in this triangular fashion with their abdomen a bit elevated. It's called the tectiform resting posture. So these are some of the families that I'll introduce you to and how to identify them, like very basic ways to identify them. The first one is the most speciose family of moths, which is the noctuid moths. They have about 35,000 species, and they are specialized for powerful flight. Some of them are also pest species. They have this typical tectiform posture, like I mentioned earlier. As you can see that they sit in a very triangular position with their abdomen elevated. And if you have sunflower, cabbage, beet, hibiscus, all these in your backyard, you're most definitely going to find some noctuids around. One of the most popular noctuid moths is the Indian lily moth, the Polytella gloriosae. If you have lily flowers in your garden, definitely you'll see the lily moth caterpillars munching away at the leaves, and they complete their life cycle underground, and this beautiful adult emerges. So if you have rain lily, fireball lily in your backyard, definitely you'll see this beautiful moth. The next family is the cranberry family, also known as the grass moth family. So they have this typical sitting posture where their wings are spread in a triangular form, and the most characteristic feature of this family is when they are complete rest, they flip their antennae backwards. As you can see on in all these pictures here, the antennae is flipped backwards. Here also the antennae is flipped backwards. So you can easily identify them, at least the family. So if you have spinach, beet, maize around your garden or backyard, you'll definitely find these common ones. If you have brinjal in your garden, in your kitchen garden, definitely you'll find this eggplant shoot borer, which is a pest species but a beautiful one. If you have mango, potato, all the solanaceae plants around you, you'll find this brinjal shoot borer. Next family is the Erebidae family. It is also a very large family of moths and huge variations. So I'll have to take you through some of the subgroups in this family. So first one are the fruit piercing moth. As I said before, that they are attracted to ripened fruits. So they feed on fruit sap. They have this piercing mouth part with which they pierce the fruits and take in the sap. So that is why they are called the fruit piercing moths. Then they are the owl moths. They have this beautiful eye-like marking on their forewings. They are decent size, like larger moths, not as small as crambidae or noctidae, but like as large as what do you say, Saturnid moth. Next group within this family is the tussock moth family, tussock moth subfamily, the Limantini family. They are called tussock moths because the caterpillar has this characteristic tufts on their back, which is why they are called this tussock moths. Uh, so if you have castor, Shoria robusta, terminalia, mango plants around, you'll definitely find these. Limantini subfamily moths, or better known as the tussock moths. Next subfamily is the tiger moth family. They are very brightly colored. Many of them are day flying moths. They have this typical abdomen color, like black and orange, or black and red, or black and yellow. So they have typical markings on their abdomen, which is why they are called the tiger moths. They are also very interesting because they have these sound producing organs in their thorax, so they are able to deter their predators through sound. And also they have aposematic coloration, which is warning coloration. They are very brightly colored, which are advertisement to their poisonous nature and distastefulness to predators. And they have these amazing life history strategies. So the larvae, they have these spines on their bodies, the caterpillar. So when they pupate, they take out these spines from their body and form this cage like structure around them, around the pupa, so that it can protect them from predators like geckos or birds. It is a pretty hard structure which you can find on walls. And this is a very good defense mechanism in a growing stage found in moths. And also, so bats are the most prominent predators for moths. And like every night, above our heads in the sky, this prey predator warfare is going on, which is based on sounds. Bats produce echolocation, and moths detect them, and they also produce ultrasound in return, and try to escape predation. So tiger moth group especially has this evolved sound producing organs. They can hear the bats, and they produce this ultrasound from their timbal organs, which is located at the base of their wings, and they can confuse the bats and escape predation. Next family are the hawk moth family, is also known as Sphingidae. They are very, very strong flyers and voracious feeders of nectars. So if you have white flowers in your garden, like jasmine or adenium, or if you have so they are pollinated by hawk moths. They are the most prominent pollinators of night blooming flowers. And if you happen to see the caterpillars around, they are very easy to identify because they are this big fat caterpillars, and they have a characteristic a tiny tail at the end, which gives away that these are hawk moth caterpillars. So this one of the interesting features of this family is this interesting species, rather, the death's-head hawk moth, which is called so because of their skull-like marking on the head, as you can see here. So what it does is it steals honey from honeybees. So as you can see, their coloration is also very similar to bees. So they what they do is they sneak into their hives, and they to protect themselves, they produce this chemical that suits the bees, and makes the bees feel that he is one of their own, and in the process it steals honey. Next popular hawk moth is the oleander hawk moth or the Daphnis nereid. If you have a nerium oleander plant in your garden, which is a very popular garden plant, you will definitely find the caterpillars and these adults around your house. The caterpillars are immune to the toxic substances which is produced by the nerium plants, but the adults are not toxic. Next family is the Geometridae family, also known as the looper moths, because their caterpillars they move in this looping fashion. Because they have this modified prolegs and they don't have legs in the middle of their body, so it seems like when they are moving, it is like they're measuring the earth. It's so this name comes as geo earth and meter from measure, so the name comes as Geometridae. So they are one of the most diverse families within the order of Lepidoptera. They are forest dependent. So if you have a healthy forest around a forest patch around your house, you'll most definitely find more Geometrid family moths in your house. And they are also bioindicators. Just because they are forest dependent, they are indicator species also. So they're indicative of forest habitats, and they are not found in like not that abundant in disturbed habitats, but more in the forested habitats. Next family is the Limacodidae family, also known as the cup moths. They are also known as slug moths because the caterpillars bear resemblance to slugs. They have this typical triangular hairy body, and if you have banana or mango trees around you, you'll definitely find these moths. Okay, the next family is I think it's one of the most popular families of moths in India that we know as the Saturnid moths. The silk moths, the atlas moths, the emperor moths all belong to this Saturnidae family of moths. They are very large bodied moths, and they don't have mouth parts. They are very short lived. The adult life is very short, say about a week. So they don't feed or anything. So they emerge into adults, they mate, and they die. So it's the like because of the short lifespan, they have not invested much in their mouth parts. So their wings also have this triangular window like shapes or eye spots, which are anti-predator strategies, and the body is comparatively shorter than their wingspans. They have elaborate wings, but their bodies are relatively shorter. So if you have plum, pear, walnut, or sal, mango around your house, you're most likely to see some saturnids around. They are also very interesting because they have these anti-predatory strategies. So some of the saturnid moths, like the moon moth, the Luna moth, have these elongated hind wings, which help create an acoustic illusion. Which means that if the bat is chasing them and producing ultrasound, so the moths create this illusion with their wings, which confuses the echolocating bat and they cannot locate their prey. And also recently, I think this study came out last year. Uh, it showed that the thoracic scales of these saturnid moths, it was found in one particular moth, the Madagascar bullseye moth, that they can absorb the sound energy produced by an echolocating bat. So, which means that if they absorb the sound and not reflect it, the bats won't be able to detect them, and they can easily escape predation. And yes, they are predated upon by a number of animals, bats, birds, frogs, beetles, and spiders also. And that is why they have this amazing survival strategies. They can be through color, through sound, and through chemicals. I've already told you a bit about these, that they are brightly colored, which are advertisement for their unpalatability, and they also flash these colors to surprise the predators, and they drive out the predators like that. And they also produce ultrasound, as I described a bit earlier, from the tympanal organs or stridulatory organs, and that also advertises unpalatability. And some of the moths have these toxic secretions in the adult, also in the caterpillar stage, uh, which makes the predator not eat them. And also they have this mimicking strategies. They mimic plants, lichens, leaves, twigs, a tree trunk, sometimes like a snake head, bird droppings. All of these confuses the predators and help the caterpillars survive. Caterpillars also have this bright coloration, like some of the adults, which are a warning signal to the predators. And they also have these concealing strategies, like when you hear about this leaf rolling moth, leaf mining moth. These are nothing but survival strategies in which they conceal themselves from the predators. And one of the most popular moths, I think, is the bagworm moth. They have this pupal casing made out of plant materials like twigs, like branches, leaves, soil, sand, whatever they get around, and build this protective layer around their pupa while they are growing. And the adult looks like this, the Eumetra. And yes, this is one of the most elaborate defense mechanisms that we find in moths. So, what do moths eat? Yes, they feed on fruit saps, the fruit piercing moths. They nectar on a lot of flowers. So they also take in moisture from the soil, human sweat. If you put out a sweaty T-shirt on a summer night, you'll definitely find some moths taking in sweat from those shirts, and you can observe them that way also. And also they feed on tears, like of sleeping birds. So they're not all moths, but some of them. They don't harm the birds in any way. They're not parasitic, but they just take in the tears. So we have talked about some of the interesting moths that we find in our country, but there are many amazing moths that we have around the world. First example is of the peppered moth. I'm sure that all of us have read in school books about this particular species of moth known as the peppered moth, which is a prime example of natural selection theory. So what it does is, so initially there was this white form, and which was camouflaged in the lichens of the trees. And when industrial evolution happened, it developed a black form which would easily merge with the polluted surroundings, and uh, would not be detected easily by predators. So it's one of the most interesting examples that we see with moths. Next one is the Darwin's hawk moth. Um, this is a very interesting moth because there's an orchid species found in Madagascar, the Angraecum sesquipedale, which has a very long nectary. And Darwin had predicted that this flower can only be pollinated by a moth. Nobody knew actually what can possibly pollinate this unusual flower. And years later, after his death, it was found that this particular hawk moth, the Xanthopan morgani predicta, has this long proboscis which can pollinate this flower, which is known as the Darwin's orchid. And later, this moth was named as Darwin's hawk moth. I often come across this question as like, do moths migrate? Yes, they do. They're one of the most interesting examples of migrating moths is the bogong moth found in Australia. So every summer, they move into the mountains, into the caves, and form this gregarious estivation. They hibernate in. It's called estivation in large numbers in caves. They travel for about 1,000 kilometers every year, and from these caves, they are like collected by the aborigines who would come into the summer and collect these moths from the caves and feast on them, which is an annual celebration for these aboriginal tribes there. And also this mountain pygmy possum, which comes out during the summer, feeds on these moths. So it exclusively feed on these moths, so it's crucial for its survival also. So all these interesting stories, if you want to know more about them, you can get this book by the Natural History Museum, London, which has like all these wonderful stories about moths from around the world, and with stunning pictures. So yeah, if you're interested, get a copy for yourself. And one more thing that I want to talk about is the light pollution. Yes, we are encouraging people to put up light traps in their houses to observe moths, but yes, light pollution is affecting moth populations around the world. There has been studies which has shown that it has had huge impact on their physiology, their inherent behavior of like flying towards the light has been reduced due to long-term exposure to urban light pollution, and also it is disrupting their pollinating activities. So yes, the artificial lights, as we are illuminating our night skies more and more, we are hampering these tiny insects and their life cycle and their physiology. So, in India, moth research is gaining momentum. It was not as popular when I started off, let's say 5, 6 years back. We don't know how many species are there, we don't know where they exist, and what are the drivers of these observed patterns in distribution. Which leaves a critical gap for all of these questions, which are incompletely answered for moths in India. So, yes, document the diversity in your surroundings, which adds to the distribution data about the diversity at each corner of our country. So I did this book from my campus in Wildlife Institute of India. So we recorded about 120 species of moths within the campus. It was all. I just compiled all the photographs that were given to me by students and faculty, and which they saw around their houses, in the hostel, in the bathroom walls, in the hostel walls, all of those things. It was just compiled into one book to know what species are there around us. So it is important to know the diversity surrounding you. And also, as the National Moth Week has started, it is a global citizen science program. It was initiated by David Moskowitz and Liti Haramati from the US. You can take photos from your backyard, from playground, from your home. The most important part of this program is that anybody can participate. Or you can have these public light trapping sessions for students, for enthusiasts, to generate interest among people about moths in general. And yes, while photographing them, it is crucial to photograph them in the right way so that the identifications happen quickly and efficiently. So it's important to photograph them like head on, like eye level view. Also, sometimes the underside is important, like in hawk moths. If you get a chance, like click their underside, which is crucial for identification. And also hind wings in some species like the fruit piercing moths. It's important to get their hind wings photographed. If you cannot, it's fine, but try as much as you can. And like shots like this, like very what do you say, uh, photographic geniuses do this, like they do this headshots of moths and post them online for identification, which is not important for science or for identification, but yes, they can be great photos, but not for identification. But after you have photographed them, you have observed them in the lights, you can use these guides to identify. There are some books like the Field Guide for Moths of India, and then you have these online resources which gives you help in identifying the different species that you see. And after all of this, you can upload your observations in any of the citizen science portals like the Moths of India, India Biodiversity Portal, or iNaturalist. It is important that you upload your observations so that there is a documentation of different moth species from around the country. It is not important to identify them always, because in each of these portals there are experts and reviewers who identify them for you. But yes, as much as you can contribute. So yes, so moths represent the hidden wildlife on our all our doorsteps. We need not go far, we need not have expensive equipment to understand and observe these beautiful creatures. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Pritha, for this wonderful talk. Um, it was indeed engaging. Taxonomy has always been very interesting and always intrigues one. Though there are not very mm, people who are fond of taxonomy, but it's something that one has to always start with. So, thanks for your talk. So, we have a few questions. There is one by Sheikh Hussain. Admin can sh- show us it on the screen. Yeah. So he asks, how are macro and micro moths differentiated and on what basis?
Yes, so macro and micro moths are not taxonomic differentiations. They are like what we say is that we see the smaller moths, we say these are micro moths, and the larger moths we say as macro moths. They're differentiated mostly based on their body sizes and like the wingspan and body sizes. So the families like the Lepidopteran or Gelichoididae, or all these are the micro moths. They are smaller moths. That's why they are called the micro moths. So yes, so based on the size, we make this distinction.
Okay, so he has another question. Um, how many moth families have been discovered till now in India? I hope you can answer that question.
Yeah, it is a tough question. We have over 100 families of moths from India so far. We don't know. We might have many more, but yes, over 100 families.
So just a general question, where are we in moth research? Where is India in moth research, if we ask?
Yes, so it is gaining momentum. That is what I always say. Like even like people are interested to know moths better. We have like institutions like the Agricultural Institute in Tamil Nadu, in Delhi. They have all studied the pest species. We know more about the pest species because they are more common. We see them and they're easy to do research on. And so we have like in pockets done studies on pest species. In Northeast India, people have documented the diversity a lot. Some ecological papers came out very recently, like how body size changes across elevation, and how community structures are based on functional traits. And all of these studies are picking up now. So we are there. There is a group in ZSI who are doing excellent work with taxonomy of moths, so which is very crucial, which is the basis of what we can do with moths in future. So they're working on that for me, I am interested in the ecological part. Like I started off with taxonomy, then I moved on to the ecology of moths. So where are we if we say we are in a good place, but we can be in a better place? I would say that I mean more and more people need to be interested in moths, and it is very encouraging to see the number of participants that are registered for this National Moth Week this year, which is over 500, which tells us a lot that uh, that it is gaining momentum. Like interest in moths is gaining momentum in India. So
I
yes,
think that's where ecology in India is right now, overall, if you look at it.
yes,
We
yes,
are gaining momentum and we are at a good pace, I guess.
yes.
Okay, so, okay, Sheikh Hussain. So I'll take another question by Pranav Dattar. He asks, I had observed one jumping spider feeding on tiger moth, but tiger moth is poisonous. So won't it harm the spider? And he also has a follow up of this question that are all tiger moths toxic or they just mimic other poisonous moths?
Okay, very good question. So yes, um, so spiders are capable of hunting tiger moths. Even I have seen that because spiders, their hunting mechanism is very different from birds or other predators to which tiger moths are defended. So they can't. Birds cannot take in birds or bats cannot take in tiger moths. They'll immediately throw it off because of their toxic nature. But spiders, I've seen spiders uh, eat tiger moths. So yes, some spiders would be able to feed on them. Some spiders won't be able to feed on them. So yes, so the defense mechanism actually works for the larger predator group, which are the birds and the bats. So yes, that's my answer to it. That they might not be defended for some spiders. And
Hmm.
what was the follow-up question?
Are all tiger moths toxic or they just mimic other poisonous moths?
Okay, so you cannot mimic toxicity, but you can mimic coloration and all of that. But most of the tiger moths are toxic. Uh, that is to my knowledge. They are toxic in nature. They have this chemical defense, and yes, most of them are toxic.
Okay, so we have one very interesting question by Sheikh Hussain again. Um, he says there are very few, hardly 10% butterflies in the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Why not any moths included? If you think they are so important, why aren't there any moths
Yes.
in the Protection Act?
Yes, it's a very crucial question, I would say, because yes, for to say that a particular butterfly or any species is vulnerable or endangered or not endangered, we need to know their status, their distribution, their diversity. For moths, that data is lacking. And we are building on that data, and that is why it needs to pace up. Like we need to know, document more moths to reach that level to say that this one is critically endangered, this species is vulnerable, or it is common, it is not under any kind of threat. So that level of data has to be there, as there is for butterflies, and we need to work on that. Yes. So they are crucial. So we need to document them, and we need to elevate them to that status to give them some protection.
Hmm. So he again asks, is there anyone who is trying to include them in wildlife and biodiversity acts for their conservation? So that here comes the another question: why is conservation of moths important?
Yes, as I said, that we know their crucial roles in the ecosystem. We know that they are important pollinators. So, but we don't know the diversity and distribution of moths in India. I'm talking about our country only. So we need to uh, put that data, in a comprehensive way, so that we understand their status, we understand their distribution, we understand their diversity, and yes, and then we can work towards conserving them. Conservation comes at a is the next part. First part is to understand and know them better.
Right.
Hmm.
Um, so Pranav has another question. Apart from morphology, is there any taxonomic differentiation between butterflies and moths? Would you like to answer that?
Okay, so okay, when you talk about taxonomy, we have to speak about morphology. So, apart from morphology, it's a very twisted question. Okay, when you so taxonomic differentiation would be morphologic, right? So, I don't know how to answer this
I
question
guess,
actually.
are there any generic differences between butterflies and moths? Of course, and
Like
I'm
behavior,
just trying.
if you're asking. Yes, um, mm, they
Do
are
people
they.
do genetics, moth genetics, to
Yes,
reduce
yes.
criticism?
Yes, if you go down to the molecular level, yes, they are very very different. Actually, moths have evolved before than butterflies. Butterflies have evolved from moths, so there are a smaller group of butterflies, which is kind of embedded in the. If we look at the phylogeny, it is embedded within the phylogenetic tree of the moths. So yes, they are different genetically also.
Um, so I just had a question. Um, so we have been talking about the colors of moths, uh, how beautiful colors they have evolved. So if they are nocturnal, how does it help them, evade the predator or something like that? How does being colorful help if they are nocturnal? That's,
Yes, so you will find the day flying moths more colorful than the nocturnal moths. The
hmm,
nocturnal moths have more of these eye spots or these eye mimicking structures, which help them deter nocturnal prey. And they also have this. Say, for example, the day flying tiger moths are very brightly colored as compared to the nocturnal moths. So if you look at the colorfulness of moth, the day flying moths are more colorful. The nocturnal species will have all other defenses, like the eye spot markings or sound producing or chemical defenses. So all of these will be found more in the nocturnal species. So it's absolutely it's a myth that moths don't fly in the day. They do fly in the day. Many of
hmm,
them do, and
hmm,
which are very brightly colored.
hmm. So if they, so what do adult moths normally feed on? I mean, there are few which pollinate. What do they normally feed on, other than being nectar feeders?
Yes, so they feed on nectar. Like most of them feed on nectars. They also take in nutrition from. They cannot produce salt in their body, so they need salt. So they have this as we see mud puddling in butterflies,
Hmm,
which
butterflies.
yeah, we see similar things in moths. They also take in. Nutrition from the soil. We have this adult moths. Apart from pollinating, they also take in human sweat, like which is a salty substance. You'll find them on fecal matter. You'll find
Hmm,
some moths on fecal matter taking in nutrition. So all they need is salt and in their body, and they all go for these like sources for in salt intake. And also
hmm,
these tear feeding moths, they take so from sleeping birds, they sleeping birds or cattle, they take in tears from the eyes. They don't harm the animal in any way, but they feed on their tears. There are some which feed on blood also, but yes, they don't harm the animal from which they are taking in the blood. They are cattle, they take mammalian blood. So yes, there are all of these things are which they feed on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we have a similar question based on predation and their color by Astha Saini. Um, can you see that on the screen? So why few moth species have very distinctive and bright colors as they may be easily visible for predators? I think you already answered that, but maybe just to answer that again. Can you do that? Yep.
Yes, I mean, we might think that okay, bright colors means that they're easily visible, but bright colors to predators, it means warning. Like a very yellow color. I mean, you find it in other animal species, like in snakes also. Some snakes are these are the coral snakes. They're very brightly colored. Those are aposematic or warning colorations. So it works in the animal world like that, that bright colors advertise unpalatability or toxicity, so it works that way.
So why aren't butterflies that you know charismatic in terms of color, coloration and all? Or am I missing something over there?
Butterflies also are they are also charismatic in terms of coloration, but they also have warning coloration in butterflies. So yeah,
Okay,
they
so
do.
hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question by Pranay again. Do gut microbiota changes as larva changes to adult moths, as both of them have different diets?
Yes, it should. It should change. You're right. No, I don't think many studies have examined this, uh, but yes, they should change because adult moths don't feed on leaves; they feed on nectars. But the larval diet is basically plant matter. So yes, the gut microbiota should change
Hmm.
with from
So I had a
larval to
uh,
adult. Yeah.
yeah. So you talked about oleander moths.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they have a host plant. So for example, all these moths have host plants, and how has our current horticultural practices or bringing in exotic ornamental plants from different places changed their distributions? Has anyone studied that? For example, we oleander also grows here in Kashmir, and
Mm-hmm.
um, does it? Of course, it the distribution changes of the moths along with these. So how do moths evolve in this kind of an environment, or has anyone studied that? I
uh,
mean,
uh,
uh,
en-
you understood
Environment
what
in
I'm
terms of
asking. And
you're asking in terms of invasive species, right?
yes, yes.
Okay, so you're right. This should change. I mean, moths might have more options as host plants with more invasive or exotic species being introduced. Yes, for one example, like the lantana camera, I have seen personally because I worked in the mountains. I've seen a lot of these butterflies and moths nectaring on lantana, but they don't lay eggs and I've not seen them laying eggs on lantana. So maybe they are nectaring on them, but they are not host plants yet. But given the extent of if the invasive species are creeping into their territories, yes, they will shift their host plant at some point in time, and it will have a change in their distribution patterns. I mean, nobody has studied that, but I understand what you're trying to get at, and yes, it is a possibility that there will be a shift in distribution, as we have already seen that there is a shift in distribution due to rising temperatures
Hmm.
in the mountains. So the species which are found in the lower elevation, they are slowly moving up
Hmm.
uh, because of the increasing temperatures, and the same thing can happen with the invasive species.
Hmm.
So because all of these, the temperature, the host plant availability, everything contributes towards a moth species being in a particular place.
Hmm.
So it will have an impact, it will have a shift.
It will also have an impact on the other, on the ecosystem as
Exactly,
such. I mean,
exactly.
if you take a broader picture of it.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the entire dynamics would be shifted. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
so all those threats that apply to other species, like habitat destruction, invasive species, rising temperatures, all of them have the similar effect on moth populations as well. It's just that the scale is different. Like
Right.
the yes, the scale is different, and we need to study them at that scale. So that's the thing.
Hmm. So, how has spraying pesticides affected moths? If we know we are moving towards agricultural practices which are not, eco-friendly. So, how has that
Hmm.
affected moths?
It has, yeah, pesticides have had effects on pests. Their life cycle physiology has been altered. So we are more towards pesticide free farming nowadays. We are moving slowly towards that so that these insect life cycles are also what do you say, maintained, but you can also have this natural pest controls like the bats. They do a lot of pest control, they eat a lot of these pest species. In nature it is controlled, right? Only if we bring in pesticides or artificial methods and try to control this balance, it we cause an imbalance. So pesticides affect moths, yes, definitely.
Um, okay, so have you seen dragonflies eating moths?
I have not seen, but I'm sure they do because dragonflies are carnivorous. So I have not seen. I don't have any personal observations. Neither I've heard of anybody of any observations. But yeah, I'm not sure.
So, Pranay has another question. Um, as moths are nocturnal, how do they regulate their body temperatures? And it's an interesting question.
Yes. They do have temperature regulating mechanisms, so they need to so while flying at night, they need a certain temperature for the flight to happen. So they
Mhm.
do this wing fanning thing. You'll see in the hawk moths because they are large bodied, and they need more energy to fly. So they do this wing fanning to control their body temperature, which helps them in flying. And while resting, they are more adapted to the nocturnal temperature. Uh, so they only need to increase their body temperature when they need to fly. So they have wing fanning and all of those mechanisms.
Hmm. Um, so that's why this question came into my mind. So if their moth distributions are changing, let's say they are moving more towards higher elevations or colder temperatures, um, this is going to affect their ecology also.
Yes, yes, definitely. I mean, we don't have such studies from our country,
Mhm.
but in temperate regions, there are evidences of these pest species expanding their ranges because in the shift in temperatures. As you can imagine, how it will change the ecology of the pest species if they are expanding their ranges, and they are some of them are shifting upwards in the higher elevations. And what do you say, I mean, if you go higher up, you are creating an confusion with where the already existing species which can survive only at say lower temperatures, they adapted to that sort of a climate. So if these species come in, which are more adapted to like lower elevation, higher temperatures, so it will create a confusion. And it's time that we have such studies from India. Like I say, it's in a good place. It's going to be in a better place. I mean, such studies are needed more to understand moths in India better.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right, you're right. So I'll take just this one question and then we'll sign off. Whose larva is more voracious feeder? Is it the moth or butterfly? For example, consider silkworms.
Yes. It's a hard comparison. Some it depends on the species. Some moths, like the if you see the hawk moths in their second or third instar, they eat like anything. But and some butterfly caterpillars also, they start eating like all the caterpillars. I think moths and butterflies in the third or second or third instar start feeding a lot. It is a hard comparison to really point out who is a more voracious feeder, but yeah, so I won't be able to tell you exactly. And yeah, that's my answer.
So I think we are exactly on time. We finished exactly on time. It's been 1 hour. We have been listening to you, and the question answer session has been very nice. I hope you enjoyed the question answer session because most of the discussions and most of the um, curiosity based questions come up randomly in those question answer sessions. So it was
Yeah.
indeed a very nice session that we had. Um, so we are moving towards the end. I would like to thank you, Pritha, for really accepting this invitation. And as all of you know, as Pritha also mentioned, that we are celebrating the National Moth Week from 17th to 25th of July, and Pritha is the country coordinator from India. You are all requested to send in your observations about moths uh, on the portals available. Pritha already mentioned that, and it would be very nice to have all these observations. I would request people who are listening from J&K, please, please, and please send your observations on these portals. It is important that we put distribution of biodiversity, Kashmir biodiversity or J&K biodiversity on on the global map. So thank you all. Thank you so much, Pritha. Your last words, and then we'll sign off.
Yes, I would resonate Mehreen's words. Like people from Kashmir should really gear up and observe moths and contribute their records to this initiative, so that Kashmir has a strong what do you say? We can highlight the diversity of Kashmir during this week. Yes, it has been a pleasure to do this, Mehreen. Thanks for this session and thanks for the interactive questions. The questions were really good. So I thank whoever asked the question, Pranav and Sheikh. Thank you, and hope to interact with you more in future. And yeah,
Definitely. Thank you
that's
so
it.
much. We're signing off. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye.